Deep in the forest, men are on the hunt, but their prey is a little high on the food chain. It is unclear what his crime is, but they chase him down like an animal and mercilessly end him with an arrow. Meanwhile in the city, Mason looks for food with his best friend, when he runs off and is hit by a car. He confronts the driver, trying his best not to rip him apart, and just carries his dog away, closely watched by a mystery man. He buries poor doggy with his friend Hank. Later that evening they go and search for food, but he finds a gun instead. Hank shows him how to safely use it, reminding him to always check the barrel. They then go to where he knows they'll find food. He climbs over the fence and returns with a freakishly large piece of meat, but Frank is in trouble as the security guard attacks him. Coming to his defense, he draws the gun, but it is knocked out of his hand and used to threaten him, but he frees himself, uses the guard's weapon to scare him away, still being watched. That night, they all have enough to eat, and everyone thanks him. But he is preoccupied, thinking about the past. Hank tells him to learn to forgive himself, that it wasn't his fault, but he can't. In the morning, he gets up, has his morning smoke, then he tries to get Hank up, but the old man has died in his sleep. He is buried next to poor doggy, which I'm sure can't be legal. The mystery man is handing out food to the homeless as a dejected Mason passes by, not interested. He follows him and watches as he walks into traffic trying to join his friends, but is saved. Mystery man is Cole. He argues that he must have something or someone to live for, but Mason tells him he has nothing, and no one will miss him. Cole then offers him a chance at a new life, giving him a card for a Mr. Burns, and to go and see him before he leaves. He goes to Mr. Burns' office and is invited in when he's shown the card. He has a job offer, though he feels Mason isn't suited due to his smoking habits, as the job requires resilience. Mason proves his abilities by running for 30 minutes on the treadmill, winning their bet. He is given some money, which he uses to rent a room where he can be reached and get cleaned up. He has visible burn marks all over his back. The next day Mr. Burns brings clothes and a job offer as a guide for their hunting party. He gladly accepts, and the men fly to a remote cabin surrounded by acres of woods. In the cabin, he discovers a locked door as the rest of the group arrive. He is introduced to Dr. Hawkins, Mr. Wolf Sr., his son, and first-timer Wolf Jr. and Griffin. That night, Burns prepares a feast for the men, and they toast to Hawkins, who is the inspiration for this trip. Mason doesn't understand the appeal to hunting animals, as he reveals he is a psychiatrist with the CIA who suggested the hunting activity as therapy for his patients Burns and Cole, and they all claim that it works. Griffin expresses interest in him, wanting to know who he is, where he's from, and if he's ever killed anything. He coldly answers with "my wife and child," infuriating Griffin to his surprise. They explain that his daughter was murdered. He wants a cigarette, however Hawkins generously gives Mason a full pack. Suspicious of his over-friendliness, he wants to know how he got his scar. He proceeds to tell the story of how when he was young, his father made him kill his own dog with his bare hands as a lesson on manhood. When he gets the same look I got after hearing this. They show him to his room, and he thanks Mr. Burns again for the opportunity. In the morning, Mason wakes up to a gun pointed in his face. The men now reveal that they are not here to hunt animals but to hunt him, and they are not kidding, a complete change of demeanor from the previous day. These sadistic men tease him and throw him out the house, and give him a head start of the amount of time it will take them to eat their breakfast. Afraid, he quickly runs despite his lungs. Wolf Jr. is horrified and wants no part of the hunt, but his father is forceful, reminding him that he paid $50,000 for this trip. As they eat, Hawkins is anxious, he wants blood, and for a psychiatrist he appears the most unhinged of them all. They then leave for their hunt, tracking his every move. Griffin sees something in the distance and Hawkins follows. Both men are eager to get at Mason, but his excitement causes him to miss his shot, making everyone believe it was a false alarm. With that close call, Mason must come up with a plan and decides to run back to the cabin in search of a weapon. When he gets there, he breaks open the locked room and is horrified by the sight of preserved hunting trophies, and there is an empty jar with his name on it. Back in the forest, the men figure out his plan, and are impressed as no one has ever thought of it before, and they head back. Mason gets some chemicals and proceeds to burn the place down just as they arrive. Wolf Sr. runs in and gets caught inside, as Hawkins charges at him out the back door, discards his knife preferring to use his bare hands. He is saved by the others from the fire as Mason fights the bloodthirsty man, knocking him back into the cabin just as it explodes, and he runs away. Wolf Jr. sees him but doesn't say anything. They find Hawkins' knife in the aftermath, however, as there is no sign of him, they assume the obvious. The young man thinks this is reason enough to end the hunt, but the others convince him that they must avenge Dr. Hawkins. Believing he knows something, they question him about Mason and he involuntarily points them in the right direction. The group chase him to a waterfall, taking shots at him but miss as he jumps in. Mason survives the fall, and what's even harder to believe, his packet of smokes are still dry, giving him ideas on how to confuse his predators. The men smell cigarettes and follow the trail, however Griffin moves in another direction. All they find is a chain-smoking tree and are pleasantly amazed at his trickery. Griffin finds the same, when he drops down on him like Tarzan, knocking him out. He then carries him to a hiding place. They try to reach his radio comm but get Mason instead. He tells Burns he wants him to fly him back to the city, after which he will reveal where Griffin is, else he is a goner. They aren't worried since they know where he is hiding and plan on surprising him in the morning. It is obvious that Griffin doesn't care much for his life. He explains how a homeless man like Mason followed and killed his daughter but was never caught, adding that as far as he knows, it could have been Mason himself since he admitted to killing his own family. This leads Mason to confess that he didn't actually kill his wife and child but feels guilty about it since they died in a fire in their dilapidated building. He wasn't there to save them, and now feels responsible. In the morning, they find Griffin tied up in the cave. He has a change of heart and wants to go home, explaining how Mason could have ended him yesterday, but didn't, and he now thinks they should let him go. The rest of the men disagree and are worried that he might go to the authorities, and that's a chance none of them are willing to take, since Griffin now too becomes a threat. They eliminate him, prompting Wolf Jr. to have one of the best freakouts in movie history.
Dad, do something! Dad!
Mason gets on the comms taunting them, followed by a shot, and they hide. They then track him to the river and move along in the water, but what's that? He hides inside a log, blending in with nature. Realizing something's not right, they double back, as he rigs a bike and steals another one but is immediately shot down trying to escape, and just then Cole's bike suddenly explodes, taking his limbs. He's on the ground slowly dying, while Mason sneaks away. Burns has to end him to stop the pain. The loss of his best friend almost cracks him. Wolf Sr. apologizes to his furious son and explains why they must finish the hunt. Meanwhile, with nowhere to go, Mason uses the gun to cut a tree down to make a bridge. Funny enough, this works. The others follow the sounds. When they find it, they try to go across. Burns moves with no problem and Wolf Jr. follows, just as Mason appears behind them throwing stones at them. This causes Wolf Jr. to slip. His father tries to save him, but is too late when he falls. Wanting revenge, they chase him down, determined to end him with no success. In distress, Mr. Wolf wants to destroy him, but Burns suggests they lie low and wait for him to come to them. That night, Mason creeps up on an anticipating wolf-like predator. He shoots but quickly runs out of bullets and they get into a deadly fist fight, while Burns hides and watches as his neck is twisted out of place. He then escapes back to the plains, followed by Mason. With its engine running, he believes Burns is about to take off and runs towards it. However, we see Burns hiding in the woods and shoots the fuel tank, causing an explosion. Burns leaves with the second plane. But in the rubble rises an indestructible Mason. Back at the city, Mrs. Wolf calls to inquire about her son and husband, while Burns disguises himself as a priest before leaving, but his car won't start. He is distracted by an old lady, and hears someone following him drawing his gun. Then Mason's voice taunts him, when he suddenly appears, knocking him down. They fight, punching and kicking, and hugging each other aggressively. And Mason comes up the victor, getting Burns' gun as he begs for his life. He doesn't finish him, removing the bullets and tosses the gun aside, walking away. The cunning Burns retrieves it, loading a bullet. But he forgets to check the barrel, and then, boom. The movie ends. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, we really appreciate it. Check out more videos on our channel and see you on the next one.